Hello everybody in the Ecamm fam, David Paskin here, your Torah tech guy, and I wanted to do a follow-up to my ZoomISO video, specifically how ZoomISO can work with Ecamm. Now, one of the first questions is, why might you want to use ZoomISO with Ecamm? For me, there are a few reasons. The first is, whoever I bring in to Ecamm, whether it's a studio guest or talent that I'm producing for, I want them to be as comfortable as possible. They will be at their best in delivering their content, in sharing their wisdom, in doing whatever they're doing, if they're not having to stress out about the right mic, the right camera, browser accessibility to my mic and camera, and all those other questions. Now, Ecamm, the interview piece of Ecamm, I find super easy. I think it's fantastically implemented. I actually have a guide for it at torahtechguy.com/getready if that's something you're interested in. One of the things I do find, though, is that with Zoom, I can take my Zoom window, put it right up onto my confidence monitor here, my teleprompter. I can resize it however I want. With Ecamm running in the browser as an interview guest, I don't have quite as much control over the size of the confidence monitor that I have. So both for my clients' comfort, for the talent's comfort, and because of a few idiosyncrasies in running things in a browser as opposed to in a client, sometimes using ZoomISO really is the way to go. Everyone knows how to get onto a Zoom. Everyone knows how to mute on a Zoom, unmute on a Zoom, change their mic on a Zoom, things like that. I shouldn't say everyone, most everyone. So ZoomISO version 2 came out, and I want to take you over and show you what that looks like. So this is actually a Zoom meeting that I'm in right now. You can't hear it because I don't have the audio set up yet. Let me actually go ahead and add a camera to this scene. I'll add a me camera so that I can talk to you and you can see me at the same time. All right. So, didn't mean to do that. Sorry about that. There we go. All right. So what I'm showing you here is the Zoom meeting right here and the 4 ZoomISO feeds that I'm pulling from that meeting. This is just a screen share, a screen scrape, if you will, the big one right up above me. So that's the Zoom meeting. I should say, by the way, that I have this ZoomISO meeting running on a different computer. This is not the same computer that I'm using Ecamm on. I'm just bringing it all in over NDI. So that's the full Zoom meeting right here. Let me move this guy out of the way. And then here is the ZoomISO interface. And you can see that I have 4 outputs chosen for my, I know it looks like I'm looking the wrong way. I apologize for that. My monitor for this computer is over there. I've chosen to have 4 ISO outputs. I've assigned them to different participants. I've chosen NDI as the output. I've chosen the resolution I want. And that's what you see here on the main screen coming in. So let's see, this guy went away again. Let me choose that. There we go. So the 4 participants that you see there correspond to the 4 folks that I've chosen over here in the settings of my ZoomISO. I am using the light version, so I do not have access to advanced audio. I do have access to participant management. So if I have a lot of guests and I want to be able to switch them in and out on the fly, I can very easily just unclick and click, and you can see that the participants change there as soon as I click them. One of the nice things about ZoomISO is you can, depending on the way your meeting is set up over in Zoom, is that you can, if you're using people who raise their hands, you can just view the people who raise their hands. If you just want to view people who have their microphones on or who are speaking, who are panelists, things like that. So this is another way to change which ISOs you're taking out, and then you set them all up here. So let's talk about, so getting the NDI feeds in is really pretty easy. Let me bring you over into Ecamm for a moment. So this is my Ecamm, and I have a scene set up here. It's not a complex scene at all. This is a a camera overlay. I'm just bringing in over NDI my full desktop here. That's not from ZoomISO, by the way. That is from NDI tools. I'm just sending that over. And then these are camera overlays. So if I just were to add a camera overlay, double click on it, I can now see I've got ZoomISO 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I can change that, and you can see there is my ZoomISO 2 feed. So I've got my 4 feeds here, and this is just a screen share that I'm showing you. So let's talk about audio for just a second. There's been a lot of discussion. I shouldn't say there's been a lot of discussion. For me, there's been a lot of discussion about how to get ISO audio into Ecamm. If you take a look over here in the Zoom window, the ZoomISO window, one of the things that you can do is you can choose to embed within the NDI feed ISO audio, isolated audio. The reason why that is so exciting is because then presumably you don't have to deal with any sync issues. If the audio is embedded with the video feed, then the audio and video will be in sync, unless there's something wrong on the client side, which we have no control over. And if you have all of these having isolated audio feeds, then you could also do some mixing of those audios. So if someone's mic is hotter than someone else's, you could mix the audio on your end to get them all equalized out. So I went back and forth with both the developer of ZoomISO and the developers of Ecamm, and as of today, I can absolutely confirm that there is no way to have multiple NDI isolated audio sources in Ecamm. Well, kind of. You can have two. If you go into your Ecamm and you go into your sound levels, you can have you have your main audio source here. Mine right now is set to my Rodecaster because that's what I'm using to talk to you. I could change this to one of my ZoomISO audio sources, and then that would come in. If I want to add a ZoomISO source, I can also click on the plus button, and then
sometimes it comes out very real and very
choose that.
Weird.
I'm going to mute that for a moment. I don't know if I actually have it set up. I'll have to check and see if I have that set up, but it looked like it was working. So you can have, but you can't add any more. You can only add 2 primary audio sources. So So you could have theoretically 2 isolated guests on ZoomISO that you bring in over NDI with embedded audio into Ecamm. Beautiful. As soon as you have more than 2, you run into a little bit of a problem. So Ken, our beloved Ken from Ecamm, told me the workaround, which I presumed was the workaround, but I was waiting to hear from it from the horse's mouth, as it were. So back over here in ZoomISO, you have not only the option to do isolated audio, but you can also choose all audio. So if for one participant you choose all audio, then what's going to happen is ZoomISO is going to embed all of that Zoom meetings audio into the feed and send it over along with that into Ecamm. Now that camera doesn't have to be on screen for that audio to come over. You're just adding it as an NDI audio source, but it's going to be in sync with the speakers because it is embedded in the audio. Now you don't want to do that for all of these participants because then, I haven't tried it yet, but you will probably end up with 4 different competing or doubling audio sources. So you just turn embed audio on all for one of your sources. And then if I unmute this, I have this set up correctly. So I have it on the first one. And then over here, I have this set up on the first one. I think I have that correct. So now if I unmute this, now I can't hear this, and I'll explain how I'm doing that in a second.
And I want people to walk
you should
up
be
to
able to
table
hear
with
the
their
discussion as it's going. It looks like our ZoomISO guest number 2 is speaking right now, and you should be able to hear him. Now, the reason why I can't hear that is simply because I have all of this routed. I probably should be able to hear this directly through Ecamm. I wonder if I were to do the monitor, if that would work. Let me see.
And we're going to be using.
So it does work, but then I get a terrible feedback of my own voice. So the way I will be monitoring the audio over there is I have Zoom on my main machine set up to go into my ears, and I will simply join the meeting from the Zoom call from this Zoom machine. So I will join. Actually, it'll be the other way around. I'll actually start the meeting from here and then have ZoomISO join this meeting. But I will simply, and that's how I'll be able to hear and speak to the Zoom guests. But then I won't have, but I can then independently mute my own audio so it doesn't feed back in. It won't come doubled in, is my point. I can always mute myself on this Zoom machine, and then it won't come over from the ISO machine. So all in all, this is pretty powerful stuff, right? Again, the Zoom interview feature is fantastic. I would say 8-9 times out of 10, maybe, I would probably stick with that. But if you're dealing with a client or a participant or talent who really struggles with, they're having a hard time. Even today, I had a show earlier today I was doing with someone that I meet with literally every other week on Ecamm, using the Ecamm interface as an interview. And today he could not figure his audio out. Something went berserk. He just couldn't figure it out. So I hopped him on a Zoom call. For whatever reason, Zoom fixed the problem and we were able to do our show. So if you're looking for an alternative method to bring in guests to Ecamm, if maybe you have guests or talent who really yearn for the creature comforts of Zoom, something they're very familiar with, ZoomISO version 2 may work just brilliantly. You can bring in, as of right now, I would stick to 4 ISO sources. You get those nice clean feeds out of Zoom. Zoom has a very, very reliable, stable product. You can embed all of the audio into one of those NDI sources, so you've got really nice audio video sync. If you only have 2 guests and you're not on, maybe it's just 2 folks and you're just producing, you could just have them come in as isolated audio feeds, and then you can adjust their audio on the fly right over in your sound levels panel. But it's a nice alternative. Again, love the Ecamm platform. I'm a huge fan of it. Of course I am. This is yet another tool in the tool belt. And so grateful to Ken and Glenn and Andy and Jonathan and the folks at both places and all of you for helping to make these products so fantastic. If you want to learn more about ZoomISO, you want to play around with it, you have questions about it, feel free to reach out to me. You can always reach me at my website, TorahTechGuide.com, and I have lots more videos over at TorahTechGuide.tv. That's what I got for you, my friends. Have a lovely rest of the day. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.